Asante Sana, Jambo, Alafia, peace and blessings to all my brothers and sisters in London. This is Brother Small, as you can see, Professor James Small. We had a wonderful, wonderful time in Bristol, in Manchester, in Birmingham. And the people came out. The support was beautiful. The message was magnificent. From King Mapango to our dear Queen Mother, Mambo Okadzi, we were able to reach our people and touch our people with an ALD message, a message of unity. We talked about Pan-Africanism. We talk about unifying our people. That is the meaning of Pan-Africanism. We talked about African spirituality, not as a religious perspective, but looking at our ancient sacred science that our ancestors left for us to understand ecology and cosmology and how we use it to work for us. We went further and we looked at what's happening in the Sahel, and we're all pleased because we're hearing today that Chad has petitioned to become a part of the Sahel Alliance. We saw today a beautiful message from the government of Senegal, where they're asking the French to finally remove by September all of their military from the country, and a beautiful message from one of the ministers of state, a sister that explained what the position of the African community is. And so African Liberation Day is finally, we are seeing real liberation. We've gone through decades and decades of the aspirations for liberation. But what is occurring in the Sahel is showing us what liberation actually looks like, and particularly as we see the unfolding in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and Niger. And so I think the rest of the African world is looking and says, we can make that last step away from neocolonialism. We can make that final step away from colonialism. We can tell imperialism, sit across the table from us and do business as ethical, moral nation state does business. And Africa will deal with its own sovereignty in all aspects of our nation state and our nation building process. And so I think we've had a wonderful, wonderful 50 years, but we've had an even more wonderful message that has come to us. And so in London, listen well, you have an extraordinary teachers coming to you. And Brother Mapango, who's our great king, I thought I knew him until we were on the same dais and I saw the great wisdom and the great intellect and the great spirituality and the great understanding of the liberation process come forward. And I was meeting for the first time our great Mambo Kadzi. And I go, my God, what spirit we have in Africa, what power and intellect we have in Africa. What a wonderful scepter to explain our indigenous way of knowing reality, our indigenous political structure before we met the enemy, our indigenous spiritual structure that we have to try to replicate and then duplicate again. Because if we're going to build the Africa that we want to see, it has to be an Africa that's based on our ancestral models of what governance looks like. It has to be an Africa that's based on our ancestral model of what culture looks like. It has to be an ancestral model that's based on what educational systems look like. I think that's the message we were seeing in Bristol. That's the message we were seeing in Manchester. That's the message we saw in Birmingham. And I know that's going to be an expanded message, even though I won't be here with you in London. So peace and blessings. Enjoy yourselves. Learn well. Asante Sana.